That's what he said you should do. And that's just what we did. And looking back on that in hindsight, I wish I would have did my research a little bit more in order to make sure that was the right thing to do. Sometimes I get asked about our plan as far as us paying off our mortgage in 5 years. I don't really see it as a plan per se, more so just a lifestyle of living our lives intentionally. Obviously, we're not perfect. Sometimes I want to eat Tropical Smoothie Cafe 3 times in a week, and that's perfectly okay. Going on a budget doesn't mean you're going without, it just means you're planning your expenses. But when it comes to the topic of Dave Ramsey, there's a lot of things I just don't vibe with him. And we've made videos about that before. But particularly, the one thing I can for sure say kind of just explains them all is that no one's situation is a one size fits all. What works for you isn't going to work for me, and vice versa. I never feel like you should tell someone, oh, this is what has been working for people for 30 years, and this is what I say, and this is what I tell you to do, so do it. And if you do something else, you're not really vibing with me like you say you are. Just because $1,000 might be okay for someone who's 19 and still lives at home with their parents doesn't mean that that's okay for the homeowner whose AC just went out, but they're trying to follow your plan and pay debt, period. You could say a lot of the things that he decides to tell people to do lines up with what we have done. I mean, we paid off all of our debt first. Then we save for a down payment on a house. Then we put 20% down. Sure. But I don't really feel like that's Dave Ramsey's plan. That's just the things that he says, these are probably the best things to do. But when he says things like no credit scores are important. If you're not getting back into debt, you don't need credit scores. I can't agree with that. It's not true. Debt isn't the only thing that you're using a credit score for. When I sign up for a new utility bill, when I get new internet service, when I do any of those things, they're running my credit. And if you want me to tell my now 7-year-old that when he turns 18 or 19 and wants to get an apartment in college, that they don't need your credit, just give them the 12 months in cash up front, that is so outdated. It really is. Sure, a private landlord might go for that and say, yeah, sure, whatever. But a property manager who has rules they have to follow isn't going to just do something different just for you, just because I'm following Dave Ramsey. I'm not going to tell somebody, don't use credit cards. There's some people, sure, you shouldn't have a credit card. You can't handle it. You can't control it. You don't have discipline. And people tell me that all the time. I wish I had the discipline you had. Sure, in my head, I'm saying you could. You just have to do it. Realistically, there's some people who truly just don't have that discipline. They're not there yet. You shouldn't have a credit card, especially if you're someone who has credit card debt and you're actively using the card. You're actively getting yourselves into more and more debt every month. When that statement comes out, that balance is higher than it was last month, because not only are you paying interest on it and you had a balance that you didn't pay off last month, but now you're using it every single day. That person needs a revamp. All in all, you shouldn't be doing that. You have to say, okay, this is a problem. I'm making my situation actively worse every single day. I'm not starting at ground zero today when I woke up and saying, I'm going to choose to make responsible decisions. I am going to say, okay, that's enough. Let me start trying to better my future instead of continuously making it worse. Maybe you today are ready to hear that and you're ready to make a change. Other people aren't. They're going to keep living their life. But for other people who are responsible and they track every transaction and they say, I'm going to use this for the benefit or for the convenience, and I'm going to pay it off every time I get paid or once a month, what have you. Those type of people, why can't they have a credit card? I mean, sure, they say that the psychology of it, you're spending more than you could have. But if I go to the grocery store and I say, I need these things or I'm going to get these things, I'm going to get them. With ourselves, we have 2 credit cards, and that's just my sweet spot. That doesn't mean it's everybody's sweet spot. Some people might have 8 credit cards and they can handle every single one. Personally, I feel like that's a lot. I don't want to spend all day trying to configure every single thing. You should have a credit score. You should not aim to make it indeterminable or 0. That's low-key silly. And it's really ignorant to think that at the end of the day, you can just buy your way out of every situation. That's not the case. What worked 30 years ago isn't going to work today. An $1,000 emergency 30 years ago, you're grand. That's great. In 2024, no. So what about somebody who owns a home and their air conditioning goes out and I'm trying to pay off debt and I have $1,000 and that's it? What is that making you do? It's probably making you go back into debt. But sure, Dave Ramsey says don't have any credit cards. You should have already cut them up and closed them. Now what? I'm listening to you to a T and I'm doing everything you say. I cut up the credit cards and now I have a really big emergency with $1,000 in savings. Honestly, I can't even lie, Dave Ramsey. Like, you guys know he gave us our drive. Probably wouldn't have even thought about paying off our house if it wasn't for him first putting that idea in our head. Love that. Love him for that. But there's a lot of things that it's just like, stop it. At the end of the day, you don't have to do everything a certain way. I just hate that. And it's real cultish. And I know that because we were in his Facebook group and like the other members, if you ask something that's not on brand with Dave, they will come for you. It's real condescending. It's nasty. It's rude. All the things. That's why a lot of people say it's a cult, because it kind of is, to be honest with you. People just have to do what they have to do. Like, nobody shames him for filing bankruptcy when he was in debt up to his eyeballs. We don't get to shame him for that because that was a long time ago and he learned from it. And now he's this multimillionaire. Other decisions that other people make and they just do what's best for them in that position or in that situation, then they're stupid. And they're literally stupid. And he'll literally say that. I just don't like the judgment. Everybody has a different 24 hours. You just never know what could happen. Same with the 401k. Like, I get it. We're in debt. Use every single dollar that you have to put towards debt and get rid of that. But then some people are like, well, what about my match? And it's an issue for him. He's like, no. I mean, us personally, we listen to him in a lot of situations. Like, when we were actively paying off debt, mainly we had stopped the contributions to the 401k. Looking back on it, I don't think I would have changed it per se. I mean, looking at where we're at now, it's not in a bad place. We're just under 60,000 right now. But if somebody else wants to do otherwise and at least get the match, let them do that. Let them just, especially if they're a high earner, like, and it's not going to make a huge difference for them. One thing that I do feel like I did not educate myself on, and honestly, there's a lot of people out there who are victims of blindly listening to Dave Ramsey. I wish that I had not, like, blindly got the term life insurance. I think it's term life. Honestly, I still can't even remember, just because he said don't do this, do that. Basically, we got the life insurance that it's set for 20 years. And then after that, like, that's it. That's what he said you should do. And that's just what we did. And looking back on that in hindsight, I wish I would have like did my research a little bit more in order to make sure that was the right thing to do. Because I mean, sure, we'd love it if by the time that 20 years is up, we're just at a point where we don't need life insurance anymore. And we may not, realistically. Like, we might be fine at that point, hopefully. You know, life happens. But I just wish that I would have educated myself a little bit more before jumping and doing whatever he said. Like, we went through whatever his sponsor was, like Xander, I think it was. Like, I wish I would have just shopped around a little bit more with it and just made sure that I was making the right decision. Like, I just can't stress that enough. Never blindly listen to anyone, whether they're a financial advisor. Like, there's even some financial advisors out there that are just like, technically you're certified, but it's like, why are you telling somebody like they can't pay off their house early? I get it. People say you might make more money investing it in the stock market, or you probably will make more money with the, instead of in comparison to the interest that you saved. Fine. But why are you telling someone don't pay off your house? Or like people have different goals. They have different things that are important to them, things like that. Like, why would you ever, as a financial advisor, say don't do that? Like, that just blows my mind. So that just goes to tell you, no matter who it is, whether it's millionaire Dave Ramsey, or if it's your financial advisor, or if it's me, don't listen to me blindly. Don't listen to anyone blindly. Like, do your own research and make sure that you are really making a decision that you're most comfortable with. So many people listen to him blindly. Like, listen to, like, we used to watch his show like every day, and there was someone just calling in like, what should I do? What should I do? Should I do this or should I do that? I do feel like money is a lot more simple than a lot of people try to make it seem. I mean, don't get me wrong, my husband's a lot more educated in the investing standpoint in comparison to myself. Like, literally, when it comes to investing stuff, I'm just like, you do it. Because it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, I know it's important. I want to just do whatever we need to do and then just go from there. How me and Dave Ramsey differ as far as our mortgage payoff journey, he doesn't expect, and neither do I, like no one really expects anyone to pay off their house in 5 years. If anything, we're doing things a little bit more accelerated. Like the ultimate goal or baby step 6 is to pay off your house early. It's not like you need to do it in 5 years, you need to do it in 10 years, but it's more so just taking all that momentum from the previous steps, maybe modifying it a little bit to get to baby step 6 and paying off your house early. Like with ourselves, when we first moved into this house, our plan was like 10 years. Like we spent 3 years paying off $100,000 in debt. I'm like, okay, so if we're lenient and a little bit more lax when it comes to $250,000 that we're taking our mortgage out on, I definitely think that 10 years is doable. Technically, if you're doubling 3 years, that's 6. And then some with the extra 50 grand. I'm like 6 to 10 years, that gives us a big leeway. We can be super lax with it, and like never was it our idea to be super aggressive with it. Like when you spend so long doing so many different things, paying off debt, saving for a down payment, like we really finally just wanted to relax, to be honest with you, and just not be so pressured, not be so intense with it. But the thing is that we took that first full year and we did things a little bit differently. Our main focus for the first 6 months or the first half of the year was to save up to buy a car because we wanted to stay true to our goal of never getting another car payment. I sold my car, which I miss that car so much. Sold my little black buggy for $10,000 to Carvana. And then we saved up $7,000 while also paying more on the mortgage to end up paying for an SUV in cash. So during this time, the amount that was going to the mortgage probably was like an extra $1,200, $1,300, things like that. Once we bought the SUV, then the next 6 months or the last 6 months of 2021, we were sending way bigger chunks to the mortgage. And then I'm like, wow, if we kept doing this, this mortgage payoff calculator says we could actually pay off this house in 5 years if we keep doing this, which obviously when you make a big goal like that, you're like, that means you have to keep having this extra amount of money for the next 3.5 to 4 years. Can we do that every single month? Is that doable? But as soon as you believe that you can do it, you can do everything in your power to try your best every single month. If you come up short, you really haven't come up short because look what you still have accomplished. That was our plan. We spoke it into existence. Like I remember my uncle had interviewed us with like some type of social media stuff that he also is doing. Either it was 2020 or 2021. And I was like, yeah, and we're going to pay off our house by 2025. Like, we're going to be mortgage free. Like, we paid off all this debt, and now we're about to pay off our house. And I was just like, I hope. And it's just like, you know, I really wanted to do it. But every single month, that's your goal. With every action that you take, that's your plan. And you do things with the intention of getting yourself closer to your goal instead of getting further away or staying stagnant. Every single month when we got our money, we said, okay, our goal is to pay off this house. I mean, we didn't say that every single time, but that's the intention. With the actions that we took, we had the intention of getting closer to that goal and doing what we needed to do. So after a while, you don't even think about it anymore. You're not even thinking about, okay, this is what I need to do. It's, okay, payday, schedule that payment, schedule the payment. Like, first thing you got paid, schedule the payment, pay the bills, schedule the payment. And you just keep doing that. When your expenses are low, at the end of the day, it's just math. It's my income. If your income is $7,000, but your expenses are $6,000, there's not much that you're really going to be able to do or a lot of wiggle room you're going to have. You have to lower your expenses. I mean, I know there's a lot of different situations. Some people are paying daycare costs, which are astronomical. Personally, we're in a good place where we never had to pay daycare prices. When my first son was first born, my friend's grandmother watched kids out of her home, which honestly, you have to actively look for this because if you're someone who hasn't looked for this, like you don't know what's out there. Like I literally had just made a Facebook post like, I don't know what I'm going to do for daycare. Like we are in a ton of debt. I can't imagine paying these daycare prices. I mean, this was 2017, so they're not even as much as they are right now. But still, I'm like, we don't have extra money for daycare. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I just made a Facebook status about it. And then someone that me and Dennis used to work with was like, my grandma watches kids out of her home. Do you know that her grandmother lived like a mile or less from where our apartment was? And she was very affordable. Her house was right next to the freeway that I had to get on to go to work. I understand that that's not going to be available to everybody, but you'd be surprised because a year later, when grandma retired and I was crying, like, what am I going to do? Then my coworker said, oh, my kids go to this place. She watches kids out of her home too. I get it. Not everyone has the same situation. I want to keep saying that. I don't want to sound insensitive. I get it. But what I'm trying to say, or the message I'm trying to get across, is that sometimes you just don't know what's out there. Obviously, everything's not going to always fall into your lap like mine did. But if I was in that situation again, I know that right now where I live, I know there's like literally a Facebook page specifically for childcare in my town. I've never had to like use it, but they watch kids out of their home. You go to work. Like, there's stuff out there. You have to look for it. You have to use your resources. Like, we don't have a village. It's just us. Nobody in our family watches our kids. No one. I have no contact with both of my parents. No one in our family watches our kids. I actually had a friend from work watch our kids last year so we could go on a date that we hadn't been on in like almost 2 years. Like, when I say I get it, we don't have a village, like, I get it. Nowadays, things are a little bit different because after we went to the second babysitter, shortly after that, we actually just decided to try to mesh our schedules in a way that allowed us to always be home with them, which we're so thankful for. But if I had to do it all over again, I already know of so many different resources out there. Sometimes it seems like we can't get our expenses down, or we have to pay for this, or we have to pay for that. But also think about the things that we pay for and we have been paying for so long just because we've been paying for them for so long. And sometimes we don't step outside of that box to say, well, do I have to do it this way, or do I have to do it that way? Or is there someone else that provides the same service for cheaper? Not to mention that for a lot of people, majority of their expenses are debt, your credit card payments, your student loan payments. It might seem far-fetched, or it might seem far off. How much money would you have back in your pocket if you were debt-free? And sure, it doesn't happen overnight. It took us 3 years to pay off $100,000 of debt, and that was while we were not even being intentional and intense that full 3 years. We went on a baby moon to Myrtle Beach, like sporadically. We went out of town to visit family because my husband's late father wasn't doing well. No regrets looking back on it, but that's our story. That's what we did. We're regular people who took our situation and wanted to change it and actively work towards that. Like, so many people can actively work towards that. We just have to change our situation. Sometimes, what is it that you're always spending money on that you could change? What about your expenses could go down in order for you to have more money left at the end of the month? Maybe you're not ready today to start paying extra on your mortgage, and that's fine. That's a lot of people. But where could you be in a year from now? Where could you be in 2 years from now? We get ourselves into this mess, and then we want the easy way out to get out of the mess. Like, sometimes we have to put the work in. You got yourself into that mess. You reap the benefits of the instant gratification. Now we have to pay for it plus interest. Like, that's just what it is. And it doesn't have to be a situation where your life is being sacrificed or you're having to do this over that. But that was more so how we looked at it. I'm just like, you got the gratification of it. Now you have to pay for it plus interest. And you've gotten yourselves into such a big number of debt that you aren't going to be able to reward yourself every month. You can't go out to eat every week. Like, we have to prioritize, and I'm so glad that we did that because I can't imagine continuing and still being paying on that debt right now. Like, mathematically we would have been. Like, I know there's a lot of people that are just like, oh no, I'm never paying back these student loans. It's not up to me. The government needs to take care of that, or this or that. No, you have to pay for what you did. And back to Dave, unfortunately, sometimes he's so stuck in his ways that things just don't even make sense. He's so set on the fact that your appreciation on a brand new car decreases so much once you drive it off the lot, which is true apparently. And you should never buy a car unless you have $1 million net worth. That's another thing he says. Don't buy a brand new car unless you have $1 million net worth. But then what about that inventory situation we had a few years back where used cars were very expensive, brand new cars weren't? And it was to the point where people were calling in like, hey, Dave, I want to buy a new car. I know you say don't buy a brand new car until you have $1 million net worth, but as it turns out with this current market, brand new cars are actually more affordable or closer in cost to a used car. It just makes sense to buy a new car right now. Don't do it. Nope. Nope, don't do it. He's so stuck in his ways. You have to adapt sometime. That's the thing. He's very successful, and I'll give him that. And I think it's because a lot of people who are similar to him support him in the sense of, yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Keep it. And they don't adapt either. My neighbor is cutting their grass now. I'm going to try to use the microphone. Where was I? But yeah, he's just so stuck in his ways, and he's just like, don't buy a brand new car. And he would still tell people that. But we really have to adapt. A lot of times, unfortunately, people who don't adapt with the world, or like when you're doing things like influencing people or social media, they get left. People who can't step out of their realm making music, if they're not adapting, people don't want to listen to that anymore because it's just not what people want to listen to anymore. Like, we really just have to adapt, and he's really stuck in his ways. Like, I'm buying the brand new car. Appreciation isn't everything, and that's the thing. Is like, people just think about, oh well, this is going to add value to your home, but this isn't. Well, what if I don't plan on selling my house? Like, what if I'm just going to live here for a long time, and then if I do sell it, okay. Oh, well, this is like plummeting the cost of your car. It's going to depreciate. Well, in that used car market, I got 10 grand for my 7-year-old hatchback. Granted, it had like 55K miles and it was 7 years old. I made out okay. Couldn't believe the amount of money that I was getting for that car, even though I miss it so much. But sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to stay out of debt, man. In a lot of ways, Dave Ramsey and I were similar because, like, I'm not so extreme, but like, people would see me as a little extreme. Never wanting to have another mortgage again. People are gonna see that as pretty extreme. Like, people think that's crazy. People are like, so you're gonna live here forever? I'm like, no. Like, if I don't live here forever and I do sell this house, I would use that money towards a new house. Or somehow, since I'm gonna pay off my house before I'm 30, if at 60 we want a new house and we want to keep this house, I'd buy a house in cash somehow. I don't know. As soon as you say you can't do something, then you can't do it. But if I say I can do something, then I can do it. I could live in this house forever. Fine, maybe. My grandparents lived in their house for like 55, 60 years. Not impossible. They bought that house for $15,000 in the 60s. Yes, 1 5, $15,000. Personally, I don't think it's extreme to never want another car payment again, but other people would think that. They would think that's extreme because people are so used to getting car payments and getting a new car and just going back into debt. It makes me a little sick. I'll be honest with you. It makes me just a little sick because why is that so normal? Why can't we just keep our paid off car? Why can't we just try to save up money and buy another car? Why can't you sell one? Some people really believe we're always going to have a car payment. I think that's disgusting. Anyway, that's why people think that some things are extreme about me. Paying off my house in 5 years? That's weird. That's extreme. And so that's why I say that in some ways we're similar. But overall, the way I stand apart from Dave Ramsey is that I'm not going to tell somebody that you're crazy, you're stupid, you have to do it this way or else you're dumb. Not condescending. I adapt with time. I realize that not everyone has the same 24 hours, period. And finances are never one size fits all. It's personal finance. Honestly, I could go all day and I could get really amped up and upset about it because I just like it's so wrong, some of the things that go on in that cult. But who am I? I can only control myself. And at the end of the day, I just think that if people really tried and they changed their mindset about things, they could really put themselves in a different position. Like me, myself, my plan is to change my kids' life and have their lives be so much different than mine was. I mean, granted, I never went to college, but if they do go to college, which I do plan for them to go to college, I don't want them to have to take out student loans. How is it that my house is paid off before I turn 30, but I'm not setting my kids up for success? That's crazy. Looking back on that, imagine being like 30 and being a friend of my son when I'm like grown. Wait, your mom paid off her house before she turned 30, but you had to take out student loans to pay for college? What were they doing? No excuse. Not even just because of that, it's just period. I don't want my kids taking out student loans and going into debt and starting their life the same way we started our life, like strapped and shackled down by debt. Like literally, that's how it felt. Who do I look like? Not for me. That's why, even though right now the amount we have in there is laughable to want something like that, by the time this house is paid off next year, we are kicking it into overdrive. Speaking on not having a village, like none of our family, like No one, period. But none of our family, anybody, has contributed anything to their 529. It's not their job. They're not obligated to do so. But link is right there on Facebook. Like, you're on Facebook. A lot of people are on Facebook. Oh, we love our kids. Your kids, blah, blah, blah. It's pinned on my Facebook page. You want to contribute to their success? Like, nobody ever, if you know me and you're watching this, don't buy my kids any toys ever. How is that contributing to their success? They have plenty of toys down there to play with. They're good. They don't need any toys. They have plenty of clothes in their closet. My older son, after he wears stuff and it's still in good condition, it's going to my younger son's closet. And my older son, he is good. Mom looks for sales. Mom buys clothes in bulk when the sales are out and they're giving huge discounts on them. He has plenty of clothes in his closet. He is good. Clothes, shoes, he's good. Toys, they're fine. They are good. What we need is to put money towards their future. Anyway, the reason I bring that back up is just because we're doing this. Like, these are our kids. Obviously, nobody else is responsible for their success. But all I'm saying is I grew up with my grandparents where they were right there. They were my right and left hand man. Those are basically my second pair's parents. Like, that was a village to me. Whether it's financially, whether it's picking me up from the bus stop. My grandma's picking me up from the bus stop every day. Let me not turn this into a trauma dump right now. Anyway, my point is that it's us by ourselves. We're doing this. And even with everything that we're doing for ourselves right now, my kids are going to be in a different position than I was in. I'm not stressing my kids to get a job. I'm not putting pressure on them to get a job when they're in high school. I don't care if it's summer break. If they want to work, sure. But they're only kids once. And then once they turn 18, 19, 20 and get their first job, that's it. You have, like, the idea is that you're working until you retire or until you die. That's it. You have one chance to be a kid. Kids get 18 summers and that's it. Like, they only have one chance to be a kid. I felt pressure to get a job. I got my first job when I was 16. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. Sure. If you want your kids to work, that's your choice. Me, on the other hand, I have a different viewpoint towards it. I will teach them values and work ethic in other ways. Like, sure, I'm not saying they can get allowance for cutting the grass. Absolutely, I would do stuff like that. But to say they have to physically get a job and clock in at somebody's job and they're 16 years old, they want to focus on sports, and you're pressuring them talking about you need to get a job? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not doing it. Me personally, I'm not pressuring my kids to get a job before they have to. They're going to work for the next 30, 40 years. Let them focus on their grades. Let them focus on applying to colleges, getting into school. Like, honestly, and maybe somebody might think that I'm like spoiling them, but like, I've never been to college and I know college is hard. Let them focus on studying. And if they say, hey, I'm not going to college, cool. Their 529 can get rolled into a Roth IRA. Imagine starting at 18 years old and you already have 5 figures in retirement for you that's going to start gaining interest and just increasing over time. Imagine that. Like me, like, you're starting them out good. You're starting them out great. I just want their life to be so much different. And whatever, like, I felt pressure to have a job at 16, whatever. Started paying my own phone bill, paid for my own phone, everything. Unfortunately, your parents still wants control. They still want to take your phone away when you do something. I think these feelings feel so fresh just because I've been writing my ebook and I'm reliving a lot of things that I went through and things like that. So it just feels fresh. Ebook's coming soon and it's getting real vulnerable on there, along with money, lots of things I learned. Anyone can really benefit from reading this book, but really it's just like, I hope that I can change one person's like viewpoint on things or just like to do things differently. Because there's a lot of things I regret about my senior year of high school and you can't take that stuff back. I forgive myself. I don't have any resentment towards the situation, but if I could change things, I would. So if there's one person who could be similar or could relate to how my senior year went in any way, and for some reason they shift things, that would be amazing. I would love a testimony. But anyway, at the end of the day, you have to do what works for you. Your situation is not my situation and vice versa. Please don't listen to anyone blindly. Like, if you take anything from this video, please don't blindly listen to anyone. Do what you really think is going to work for you. Sometimes, and if it's the wrong decision, sometimes those are the best learning lessons, is making the wrong decisions and learning, I'm not going to do that again. I hope this video wasn't too long-winded. If you made it to the end of the video, put 2 graduation caps in the comments. Love you so much for watching. See you next time. Let me know what else you guys want to see on this channel. I definitely want to start making more long form content, like long, not like in comparison to what we've already been doing, but just like really just wanting to take advantage of long form content and really getting my thoughts out there. Not super edited, not super me reading my notes on my MacBook, just really what's coming to mind. Hopefully I don't forget anything that I wanted to talk about, but I feel like the main point of this video is really just Dave Ramsey needs to adapt. There's a lot of things, and really the main thing being it's not a one size fits all. You don't have to do things this way or that way. Like, you really just have to do what works for you.